You've mentioned Stuart Saunders Smith a couple times, and I know because I know you personally how important that he is to you. But can we dig a little deeper into this? Can you discuss your relationship with Stuart? How did it form? How has it evolved over the years? Because I mean, you mentioned that he came in to USF our first semester, so that means that you've known Stuart as long as you and I have known each other, which
That's
is
right.
which is cool. How has his perspectives changed your creative practice?
Quite a bit. I mean, I think one of the first things that's worth mentioning is like Stuart's one of the most genuine people that I know in terms of like just very authentic, and he's just truly himself. And that comes across in his music and that sort of thing too, and how he thinks about music and life and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And Stuart, when I met him, we stayed in touch after the fact. He would call me just to see how I was doing. He'd say, "Hey, I just want to say hey." Oh, that's pretty cool. Never really had someone do that. Not a composer, anyway. Not
Right.
not in that
Sure.
not in that relationship or context. So I had heard we did his winter. He came down. I enjoyed working with him. All that. I heard the links for at PASIC, which the early links are more accessible and more playable and that sort of thing. And some of the late links, there's 11 links, and they're all for vibraphone, solo vibraphone. Some of them have other instruments.
And Links 4 is correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of about Thelonious Monk. Is that right?
It's a kind of a tribute to Monk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you listen to it, you're like, what do you mean this is a tribute to Monk? But
Yeah.
there are a handful of notes and motives and stuff that like align with Monk, or yeah, it's in the liner notes, but he takes some notes out of the bridge of a Monk song or something like that and uses that for some material or something. So I had gotten the links for, and that was a piece that it's like I bought it. I'm like, I don't even know if I can play this. Again, those rhythms and stuff were so new and above me in a way that it's like, man, I hope I can even play this, but the piece is really cool. So I learned it, and then I ended up at that time he was hosting the Stuart Saunders Smith coaching intensive at his house every summer in Vermont. So I'd gone up and studied with him for a week, worked on the links, worked on that piece. Then later I had asked him to write me a piece, and I don't remember exactly how that came to fruition, except that I thought maybe it'd be cool if he would write me a piece.
Yeah.
So I asked him to write me a vibraphone solo, and I told him 8 to 10 minutes. This is another story that's like, you look back at the time, you're like, okay, that happened, and then you realize like, wow, this was really a turning point. And it seems like a very fleeting moment or a trivial moment, but I asked him to write me this piece. It's like 8 to 10 minutes, man. I want to play it on my master's recital. I still study with Bob. So Stuart sends me this piece. It was called Queen Anne's Lace, and it was 5 handwritten 11 by 17 pages. And I started learning it, and he was coming down in 2 weeks or something. So I learned the first page essentially. He's like, I'd like to hear some of that. So we're in a practice room at USF, and I'm like, well, I got the first page ready to go. And this piece is like based on this elaborate repeating structure. So like it might be like you play 2 measures and repeat those. Then you play the next 4 and repeat those. Then you play 1 and repeat that like 5 times, and then you repeat the whole line. So I learned the first page. He's like, let's time it. Let's see how long it is. I'm like, okay, cool. I play the first page, and I get to the end, and he's like, how long was that? And I'm like, 9 minutes. He just starts laughing, and he's like, well, that would mean this piece is 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that means the piece is 45 minutes long. Like, what?
Yeah.
How, for one, how am I going to learn what am I going to do with this piece, So, yeah, it turns out the piece was about 50 minutes long, and I played 2 pieces on my master's recital. That and a snare drum solo I wrote that was about 9 minutes long. But that was one of the hardest pieces I've played. Not technically demanding, and his music now has mellowed out a lot, you know,
Mm.
since he's gotten older and he's living in Vermont. His life has slowed down quite a bit on their homestead and stuff. And so he's writing these like larger scale pieces that are less dissonant in a way and a little more harmonically relaxed and also not as rhythmically challenging. But just to remember where I was in the piece was so difficult. Shout out to Alex Ravitz. He sat through one of my run throughs one time. Alex, if you're listening, thank you. I know it
He's listening.
Could have been unbearable. I don't know. And he agreed to listen to a whole run through of the piece. And at that point, I'd realized, like, okay, the piece is 53 minutes, give or take, or something.
Yeah.
52 minutes. And I get to the end. He's like, great news, man. I'm like, okay. He's like, the piece is only 45 minutes. No, I forgot to repeat a whole page that takes 7 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really challenging trying to remember, like, you know, the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, that stuff wasn't hard. It was 30, 35, 40, you know, it was really that slog in the middle where you're like, man, I'm not near the end and I'm not near the beginning. I'm just in it, you know, and a lot of the way the piece was written, a lot of things were similar but different. So if you just had something come out of your hands in the wrong way, all of a sudden you like skipped half a page. But that actually paved the groundwork for these large scale, like when I was touring Loci and playing that piece for like 45 to 60 minutes, you know, I was used to doing these long performances, you know, that I could be mentally in it for the whole time. And that paved the way for a lot of my like improv work that was larger scale.
Well, hearing you talk about this piece, Queen Anne's Lace, you know, you're talking about repeating structures. And I think when people think of music like that, we think of like minimalist composers like Steve Reich, you know, using his repeated kind of rhythmic. This music's not really like that though, right?
No.
It's not quite just on a grid rhythmic kind of stuff, which makes the whole repeating minimalist thing moot altogether.
Yeah, it wasn't like play this 8 times and then move on. It was like play this 8 times, then move on to this other thing that uses all the same notes and chords, but the rhythm's different. So it's just slightly different. Then you get down 4 more lines down or whatever, and there's a section that sounds exactly the same, but it's slightly different.
Yeah.
Or half the notes are down an octave or something. I don't know. You know, these different techniques of moving those things around. So it all sounded very familiar and stuff, but it wasn't the same. And so it was more than just a concentration piece. And the repeats were of different lengths and stuff. So it wasn't natural in that sense, you know.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.